Hey guys, before we get started, we have a very special guest today. I'm super excited. I know Matt's pumped as hell. He's been trying to get to this guy forever. But follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at LaunchpadPod, and our website, launchpadpod.com. You are going to want to watch this one on YouTube as well. If you're listening in your car, don't worry about it. Keep listening. But we get to talk to a very cool creator who has an awesome office, and Matt shows off some of his personal art. Matt, you've been trying to collect these cards forever.
Yeah, are we going to tease it, or should I just jump right in and
jump right in? Say what it is, man.
So in 1988, there's an amazing card series released from Topps called Dinosaurs Attack, and it's about dinosaurs coming into quote-unquote modern times, which is the late 80s, and just fucking things up. They're just destroying and just
so violent.
It probably was the most over-the-top thing I'd seen at the time. I was 6 or 7 years old when these cards came out. And my parents didn't really look at what they were buying me, so I got to get all these cards of dinosaurs literally shredding people apart, ripping people. There's dinosaurs eating high-tension wires, and the wires are zapping people to death, squishing. There's a great one of an army general in a dinosaur's footprint, and his entire midsection is just gore and bones, and I loved it. It was just so gory and awesome. There's
a dinosaur with spikes on his back in London, just impaling people. There's a person
jumping
impaled
out of a burning building and landing on top of this dinosaur spikes. It was just gratuitous for the sake of, and it was beautiful. It was every 5-year-old monster-loving kid's dream.
Here's a roller coaster going right into a T-Rex's mouth, like cars full of people just screaming as they go into a T-Rex's mouth. Just so violent, so bloody. You showed this to me when we were roommates. You were like, have you ever seen this? I was like, no. And you're like, check this out. And I immediately was like, this is rad.
It's just so cool. If you guys haven't checked it out, look up right now. Dinosaurs Attack! Exclamation point.
I loved Mars Attacks as a kid. This came out.
It was the same principle as Mars Attacks, right? Just with dinosaurs.
Just ramped up.
This is like formative for me. In my childhood, it made me love this shit, this gore, this violence, this action, this dinosaur stuff so much. But it's one of those things that not as many people who are familiar with nerdy shit like you and me, Rooms, are into or know about. And there's been so many people that I would have thought knew, even in like, you know, doing horror makeup and horror effects. I would have thought every fucking kid had seen these. Yeah. So many haven't. So I've gotten to like show so many, but I was able to get in touch with the series creator, Gary Gerani, and he is here today. He's going to chat us up, tell us a little bit about what got him into it, how he got into the company, how he got this idea, tell some good stories behind some of the jokes and stuff in there. There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about. We're going to get to it. I just want to briefly give an overview of what this is, what like the plot of Dinosaurs Attacks is, because it's amazing.
We didn't talk because there's a story. There's an overarching story for the card set.
There's a space station that starts some time experiments to see how the dinosaurs went extinct, and they accidentally teleport the dinosaurs to modern times all over the world. And dinosaurs literally start teleporting into cities and fucking shit up. Teleporting into other people, like literally Fly style, fucking people up. And then the scientists have to like sacrifice themselves to destroy the dinosaurs, and they like reverse the time loop. And literally there's a card that's like ripped out of time where the dinosaurs like their skin is being ripped off and their skulls are being
into a vortex,
sucked into a vortex. The supreme evil dinosaur devil appears at one point and starts fighting the scientists. And this literally looks like a giant Satan Triceratops.
Yeah, it was essentially this evil dinosaur that the other dinosaurs worshipped. Yeah. And like that's at the end of the series, and you're like, what the fuck? Yeah.
It gets so bonkers, and then all the dinosaurs get sucked back in time. And
the best thing is, and we didn't really discuss this before, but the end of the end of the series, all these dinosaurs get thrown back in time, and they're being ripped apart from modern day. And at the end, it says, we started this experiment to see what killed all the dinosaurs. It was us. The end. And you're like, oh shit, that's actually pretty good writing. That's fucking deep, right? We didn't even think about to talk about that earlier.
It's amazing. You guys should check it out. Please, if you are at home near a computer, go look up Dinosaurs Attacks. You can look at every card. You can read the fronts, look at the backs, read the story. But we are going to start to talk. We are going to get to talk to the creator today, and I cannot wait. Let's get into it.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Matt, we have a huge guest, a legend in the trading card game, man.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm super pumped because, Matt, since I've known you, you've always brought out these cards and you've been
man.
Rumi, check this out. I'm like, what? That dinosaur's eating a bus full of children. So I cannot wait to talk to this guy. Rumi, I know you have been just jonesing to talk to this guy. You're so excited. Who's our special guest, Rumi? Who do we got?
So we have the trading card king, the one and only Gary Gerani is here, and he is responsible for some of the best trading card series, best non-sport trading card series that you remember from as a kid. Multiple Star Wars galaxies. He's one of the main brains behind the Garbage Pail Kids, which I know we all know. But if you know Dinosaurs Attacks, you will be just as excited for this chat as I am.
Gary, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. We're so excited
to be here. Anybody you guys are so interested in this stuff. It's fine with me. I spent all these years doing it, and it's great to know that people really enjoy it.
So you're big in the trading card game. You're also an author, a writer, you've written screenplays, but the trading cards. How did you get started at Topps? Where did that come from? Where was the genesis of getting on board?
Well, always an interesting story, right? I was still in college back in Brooklyn. Yeah, this is going back 1970, 71. And my first professional writing, I went to the High School of Art and Design. I thought I was going to be an artist, okay? And I'm pretty good. But I got discouraged when I saw so many other of my fellow students who I thought were so much better than I was. And I started to get, it was great when I was a big fish in a little pond, but okay. So what happened was just kind of by accident, I started writing and selling my writing. And my first bit of writing that I ever sold professionally was for a monster magazine called the Monster Times, which was really a newspaper format monster magazine. And I had written articles. I started writing articles for them, and they were humor articles. The first piece I ever wrote was Confessions of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, where I had to become the creature and talk about all those millions of years in the Amazon, and then how Hollywood discovered me. And I was one of those guys. That was very cute, very, very cute. I was all set to do a very serious and scholarly, kind of straightforward kind of article on the creature from the Black Lagoon for the Monster Times, which was a kind of funky, funny kind of a publication. No. Do you have imagination? Do you have humor? Can you give us this? All right, let me give it a shot. And I enjoyed it. I mean, even though that was at a time when we wanted to take our monster movie seriously and doing the funny kind of silly thing seemed like a little regressive, I did get a kick out of it. And ultimately that led to Topps hiring me. In between that was the perversity of I collected movies. Back in the 70s, the only way you could collect movies, this is pre-video, pre-all of that, was to get 16 millimeter prints through the black market. And the movie studios would sell their old prints to different, and collectors would buy them. And Lem Brown, who was the creative director of new product development at Topps, was a film collector. And writing for the Monster Times, they also gave me a free classified ad. So I said, wanted 16 millimeter science fiction movies, things of that sort. And Lem Brown calls me up. And he said, I collect that stuff too. We're talking. And I read your articles and would you like to come down and write some gags for us, write some stuff for us? So I said, sure, what the hell? I lived in Brooklyn. Topps was a Brooklyn company. It was legendary in Brooklyn, of course. And so I went down there, and I just wonder if we could say the rest is history. I felt totally at home. Lenny was fantastic. Lenny Brown had written the text for the original Mars Attack, so he was one of my heroes. And that very first day when I was there, they had me writing gags for the classic Universal horror movies. They used to have the trading card sets, the creature features, all that kind of thing. And that was a very time-honored tradition I collected those monster movie cards when I was a kid, which is just a few years earlier.
Sure.
You got to remember, I was buying the trading cards as a customer right up until 1969, where they put out the Planet of the Apes cards based on the movie. And then 2 years later, I'm creating these things for them, whatever. So the changeover from being a kid buying it to being a professional creating it was just like, almost overnight. So there I was now writing funny captions for the classic horror movies. And some captions I realized I was told were traditional captions that we kept repeating. And I kept that tradition going years. Hi, I'm the new babysitter is a gag you will find everywhere, okay? And another one was, boy, they sure have ugly girls in this neighborhood. And of course, it's an ugly monster. And those we kept going year and years after that. Ages later, I created something from them called Fright Flicks, which was that same format with the funny captions, with gloriously in color modern monsters. Instead of Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, it was the Predator and the Alien and all those things. And I even managed to get my own monster, who had just been produced that year, Pumpkinhead, into that set as well.
Oh, so cool.
So I think, I don't know if the Predator or Freddy Krueger, one of them is saying, hi, I'm the new babysitter. But it's, we kept that whole thing going. So that was what I did the very first day. As a matter of fact, it was a funky thing that first day because when you license a product from a movie studio, it's not like you're doing a generic magazine where you can print photos, you don't have to worry too much. Once it becomes a licensed product, all kinds of other things legal things are involved. So while they could run the photos of the monsters who look like monsters, if they were carrying a pretty girl or menacing somebody, that actor or actress's face that looked like a normal person, we couldn't use. So we had to take photos of people who worked at Tops and superimpose our faces over Julie Adams, over whoever it was. So in addition to writing funny captions, my face was superimposed over Karloff, and whatever it was, a couple of these things, I'm suddenly doubling for Boris Karloff, and it was pretty crazy.
That explains so much. I've always wondered why the faces looked funny. Like I swear, my entire life, I've had some of the Fright ones, and I've had I collected the Universal Monster ones, and there was always like, why is that somebody else's face? I know that's not.
Yeah, I know that's not right.
And sometimes, for better or worse, some of them are seamless, and some of them are, a little superimposed.
Yeah, the heads are kind of falling off a little bit.
Wow, that makes sense.
As years went on, I tried to ignore or not choose pictures that had other people in them, and then it got more complicated because then the Karloff estate and the Lugosi estate, whatever, they got hipper about all this. So when we did one of my best sets I ever did, of the hundreds and hundreds of card sets I've created or done for Todd, Universal Monsters Illustrated, which was done in the 90s, which was a scholarly set, where we hired like the top illustrators in comics and whatever. We had 10 of the classic Universal horror movies. And we went that route with that. And by then, I really had to, be careful of everything. And the Karloff estate and the other, they all got their piece of the action. But way back when, it was just product that they were, studios were, and they didn't clear rights to things like that. This was especially true when it came to the storylines of TV shows. People have always commented, gee, how come The Outer Limits, I saw that episode, it wasn't like what the trading card was. Well, we didn't have the rights to the storylines.
Right.
So Len Brown had to make up these crazy plots. And I wound up doing a lot of that too. I see, the thing is, being a film historian, being a guy who was took all this seriously, I wanted it usually to be serious. But I remember when we did The Incredible Hulk, the Lou Ferrigno show, I carefully wrote the episodes because I was aware of what the episodes were, what the photos came from, whatever. And then Universal came out, we can't use any of this. so I just had to write some generic stuff and put puzzle back images on the backs instead of text. And I had written this great wonderful material that just couldn't be used. So that's Adventures in the Trading Card.
Now, you're talking about the legal pitfalls and ramification of some of these card sets that have franchises and already have a movie base. You, as a film fan and as a film fanatic, collector, historian, you said that this stuff is serious for you. So when you're doing, like the Universal monsters, especially from a parody angle, not just legality pitfalls and trying to walk that straight line, but are you ever like writing a joke or writing the text of a card and like being like, is this okay to say about this? Like this property that means something to me? Am I stepping on toes with this?
Well, I'd be stepping on my own toes if you're saying, because in a way it means, as you said, it means something to me.
Sure.
When I had to do that with my own monster, and I have Pumpkinhead saying, could you pass the shrimp to tempura or something? All these silly, nonsensical things. So by then I was into the whole zone of it. I could never have created Dinosaurs Attack if I didn't appreciate the bizarre humor that can come out of these outrageous situations. The monsters were outrageous to begin with, so they lent themselves to funny gags. With Dinosaurs Attack, of course, the whole thing was a parody of excessiveness in general, of everything. So that really went over the top. In a sense, it was a parody of Topps. It was a parody of the kind of products we did where we had no restraints and we were big kids in the new product development. That's why I fit in right away. and like kids, you're mischievous and you're looking to get back at the establishment. And that was the secret of Topps' success, because we did these gleefully subversive products that kids would respond to, and the parents would go nuts, whatever. So we would even create, oh my God, I remember things that you could put in your notebooks at school to fake out the teachers, and you could be doing your stuff when they think you're doing your work. It was every naughty, crazy thing. So I love the split personality of Topps, because on the one hand it was the all-American baseball card company, but on the other hand it was this Mad Magazine, crazy, subversive, nutty stuff that kids adored. And then you had all the movie and TV tie-ins, which of course we just kind of loved because we loved these properties.
Sure.
So it offered everything. And I have to say, it was the greatest education I ever could have had creatively, because they had you do everything. Now, like I mentioned, I thought I was going to be an artist, and I trained for it. I loved doing it, whatever. And when I wound up becoming at Topps, was an art director without even actually having the title. But I would be choosing and hiring some of the greatest illustrators and basically telling them what to do. It was. Let me rephrase that. You can't tell an artist what to do. You're defying his worth as an artist, but you have to direct them if they're doing. If I'm doing a Mars Attacks card, and I'll be sitting down with an artist saying, "Hey, here's an interesting idea. This original series came out in the early 60s when JFK was president. Why don't we have a Martian grabbing JFK in the Oval Office, okay?" And then the artist would go, "Oh, that's a great idea. And then when we could put this in the background and do that, yeah, right. So what I wound up doing, and then I would do pencil sketches, rough sketches. So I would sort of, by proxy, be a part of the creation of all this art. That's how I managed to get that whole past desire to be an artist. I said, now I have a better artist following what I want to see done, a better artist than I am. Hey,
so you get to draw like stick figures and composition, and he makes it look amazing. I mean, it's incredible the work that you guys did, and you pack so much in each of these cards. And like, for example, on like Dinosaurs Attack, one of my favorite ones is Lights, Camera, Carnage, and it's on the set of a Godzilla movie, and you literally are doing this homage to the original poster with like the characters like looking up.
The
just
actors
like,
are there, right? Yeah. And what's great is it's a parody on so many different levels.
Yeah,
because it's inherently it's a parody, because these are the people who make giant monster movies in Japan, and now one of the things is just crashing right in on them. But by having the original actors, you're doing a parody of the original publicity stills of them looking up in terror or whatever. So it's the multi-levels, and people look at it just on the surface, they get the obvious joke, but there's all this other stuff that is embedded in it. It really was me going completely berserk. And you know, when I say it was a parody of Tops as much as everything else, that's why I used all the faces of all the people. Remember, we're talking about this thing with the faces. Well, my painter, or basically all painters, if you want to do portraits of people or realistic images of people, it's great to work from photos and all that. So I simply posed all the people at Tops in these screaming positions, and I turned myself into Elias Thorne, who was the guy who started the whole problem with this time, wrecking machine that he invented. So I said, it makes perfect sense that I play the guy because this was my idea and my project. So it was a parody of me. It was a parody of all of us at Tops, in addition to being the parody that everybody got, which was of old 50s monster movies and excessive stuff of that nature.
I'm looking at
your first got this idea, like you're doing all this amazing, fun, unrestrained work at Tops. How do you have this idea that will delight children and horrify moms for years to come, right?
Oh God, I still enjoy just the whole idea. Okay. You see, that's why I fit in. That's like to work at MPD or to work there, you had to be nuts this way. The thing that you're mentioning is very interesting because when I first started working at Tops, I'm doing all this fun, crazy stuff. But obviously, Mars Attacks made such a tremendous impression on me. They came out in about 62. Ideal age, I was a kid at the time. Mars Attacks had gone so much further than any science fiction movie had ever gone in terms of sadism, in terms of the violence. To this day, I'm still haunted by destroying a dog. Human beings can be killed like right and left. Who cares? We've seen people incinerated, turning into skeletons in the War of the Worlds. And all well and good. But destroying a kid's pet, I mean, holy crap.
Yeah.
And look at the intensity and melodrama of that painting with the little boy going, no. And the dog is being zapped and his back is flitting off. The fur is just
spine.
Oh my God.
Every one of the vertebrae just.
Oh my God. So, incredible. So having experienced that, and in my mind as a kid, always picturing it as a movie. Of course, that's what you do, right? What a movie that would have made. One of the first things I did at Tops was try to do another science fiction horror painted series like that. I pitched something called The Colossals, which was like an H.P. Lovecraft take on this kind of a thing. So it was gelatinous tentacled monstrosities from beyond the stars that were wrecking our cities rather than Martians. Interestingly enough, Tops didn't get that. They didn't understand Lovecraft. They said, wait a minute, is this horror or is this science fiction? Well, it's kind of both. It's the supernatural and it's science. Don't you get it? Lovecraft, very popular with college kids. It's, they didn't get that. But then they told me something even more horrifying, which is these things don't sell. Then the Mars Attacks, for as much as you loved it, Gary, I could show you the sales figures. They just don't sell. They become cult items and people go crazy because they're so intense. But nobody knows what they are. They don't have the popularity because they're not based on a movie or anything. So what it would cost to have 50 paintings done, it's like this big budget movie without an audience. So that broke my heart. I also had pitched to them Mars Attacks again, a sequel. Okay. So I had to put all my ideas of a painted sci-fi series of that sort away for quite a while. But then in the 80s, there was a dinosaur revival. Kids have always loved dinosaurs. I grew up going to Museum of Natural History all the time. I love this stuff. But,
oh, yeah.
But yeah, I was a Brooklyn kid. You go to the museum. I don't know what was going on in the 80s. You had Barney. You had all of a sudden dinosaurs were hip again. And it was a fad. And what we did at Tops was always to jump into fads. So we were doing funny we were doing that, and that's when I said, what if we did a dinosaur version of the Martian set? Now, this was right after we had done Garbage Pail Kids, which was not my project. I designed one of the prototypes, and it was one of the prototypes that really resembled what it came out to look like. As a matter of fact, my prototype was some guy with pinstripes like a convict, and that kind of evolved into Electric Bill in Series 1. But that really wasn't my project. You had Art Spiegelman, you had all those guys doing it. I did a few for them. I did the parody of the Mars Attacks thing, where we had sneakers on the Martian. I don't know what we... So I did a few, but it really wasn't my job. I was busy editing Howard the Duck and other movies and other crazy things that we were doing. But Dinosaurs Attack, that was my baby. They loved the whole idea. They said, let's take a shot. And because Garbage Pail Kids was such a huge hit, this gave me a budget. They said, all right, let's take a chance on this thing. Maybe this will be the next big thing, right? So now I was able to finally do the painted monster attacking the world kind of series I always wanted to do for Topps. And I jumped at the chance. I went absolutely crazy with it. And there you have it.
Amazing.
I mean, there's so much more to it than there you have it. Well, okay, so now you have this amazing idea. Topps is interested. When you had the idea, did you already have some images, either just in your mind raring to go, or did you have to use any, picture this, a McDonald's, but there's a brontosaurus smashing through it? Did you already have a couple of these card ideas in mind at that at that time?
Yeah, I think we all did. In other words, I think when I originally proposed, I remember when I originally brought it up, there was Lenny in the room and Art Spiegelman and a couple of other guys, and they got it instantly because it wasn't hard to understand. It was just do the dinosaurs killing people instead of Martians,
right?
And Gary, whatever you come up with for a story, that's fine. But as long as you've got dinosaurs attacking people, that's and okay. Here's the other thing that was a little different. Let me just things. Okay, a little better now. Mars Attacks. It's hard to believe now because of the Tim Burton movie. But Mars Attacks, in its original form, was totally serious. Not a fraction of humor, not a drop of humor in it. It was the most, because science fiction stories usually, especially from the 50s or whatever, were not tongue-in-cheek at all. They were straight, serious kind of things. So when I did Dinosaurs Attack, there was an understanding that it was going to be a satire. I was going to try to be able to do everything that Mars Attacks did, but there was that extra thing that Mars Attacks never had, which was a wink. It was going to be, this was the age of Garbage Pail, because the age of making fun of things. So it had that element. Now, I had to say to myself, I'm going to create something that's going to be funny and satiric, and wound up being a satire of everything, including us at Topps. And the whole way Topps went over the top with everything they did. But it had to have melodrama. It had to be serious enough that you could take the story, such as it was, seriously. It had something Mars Attacks never had, which was real characters, and characters that had conflicts. Again, if you're doing a takeoff and a parody of all the science fiction and classic monster movies that had all these high-sounding themes, the man who played God, Dr. Frankenstein plays God. Well, my scientist was a Dr. Frankenstein kind of guy, well-intentioned, but, everything goes crazy. And this is how he's punished for playing God. But as I got into more and more, there was this whole metaphysical idea. I wanted to make sure my dinosaurs weren't just rampaging animals. They had an evil god behind them. And here's the perversity. My scientist, as we find out in the graphic novel, I was able to get into this a little more, gave up believing in God when he lost a loved one. He lost a younger brother or whatever it was years later, which I based on me losing my cousin Joe, who died of AIDS. And that's when he realized there was no God, and he was going to be that. But there should be a God. There should be someone who you can lean on, and he, became that. But man can't play God, and as a result, all of this happens. But ironically, when he faces the dinosaur devil god at the end, it's like, that means we must have one too. My faith is restored, a la The Exorcist. I've got my faith back, even though I'm dead and this horrible ending. So underneath all of this stuff, which of course the kids never got, because it's always, whatever, this was all the underpinnings of real interesting stuff.
Well, you guys deal with some high concept sci-fi, like the idea of materialization, when you appear in a space shared with somebody else and you're trapped inside of each other. Like, for anybody who doesn't know, there's a card, it's called Entombed, and it's a dinosaur that has appeared in time in this exact same spot as another man, and the man is like trapped inside of him, kind of like The Fly from Cronenberg's The Fly.
Or transporter malfunction gone completely off the top. Well, the thing is, you have this concept to work with, and then you have to think, what could you squeeze out of the concept? What different, working with that idea? So at some point I hit, what if they did happen in the same space and everything? As much horror. And again, funny in a sick way. The way that scenario works out, there's a bunch of hunters. And ultimately, one of them has to shoot to put him out of his misery as he's in this, hellish. And it's like, that's a parody of a scene we've seen in a movie so many times. I'll put you out of your misery and whatever. And the whole thing, it was tragic, but ludicrous and funny and nutty. And I just said, you just keep piling more and more. And that was tops. You just keep going as far as you could go. I mean, we couldn't have nudity. You couldn't start saying going far. You had to be whatever. But in terms of violence, boy, oh boy. Now, they did transfer one or two irate mothers to talk to me about this. And I remember explaining to one of them, and I actually sort of converted her in the end, saying, look, kids need a release. Kids are helpless. They're in this adult world. Why do you think they like monster movies? These are power symbols, the way they can get. It's good therapy for kids. That's what we're providing. Now, if this was about slashers, something that was like in the real world, then I'd say you're right. But this is made up craziness. The crazier, the better. It's like King Kong stomping on buildings or whatever. We know that's not real, but kids, it's good for kids. And this mom really said, I never thought. I said, well, see, it helped me as a kid. I'm helping other kids the same way, get all their frustrations out. And that bullshit actually kind of
well, that bullshit is actually kind of true, right? And you and I talked before the interview. We've been talking to each other for a while. And like, these cards are absolutely, without a doubt, one of the big tent poles of why I wanted to do special effects, why I loved horror, why I loved violence and gore and over-the-top stuff in movies. Before I show something cool that I have, I wanted to ask you, and I realize we've mentioned and we've explained what this card series is, but for anybody listening who does not actually know it and hasn't looked it up yet, Gary, can you tell us a couple, either of your favorite ideas that you had or your favorite paintings from this series? Just verbally paint the picture for some of your favorite cards.
Okay. Some of the earliest ones that we had done, obviously, I was just so excited to get this project going. My original choice for a painter for the series was Earl Norham. Earl was a great painter who came from that classic era of illustration magazine kind of guys. And the original painter of Mars Attacks was Norm Saunders. It was like Earl Norham, Norm Saunders, and some other similar to begin with. But Earl Norham painted very much in that same pulpy kind of style, okay, with a lot of highlights and that kind of thing. Very, very strong contrast. But Earl, unfortunately, was not available during our scheduled time. And so I got him to do some, but I had to find another artist, and Chet Darmstetter had done some pieces. It was an underground artist who's also known as X-Gnome, and his portraits were astonishing.
Yeah.
And that grabbed me, and I said, "Oh, this is great. He'll give us a sense of reality, which will also resemble the movie posters with people. You always have these heads in the corner and all that." And I said, "Okay." So he became the main artist on the card set. When I did the graphic novel, I was able to get Earl back again, and of course, Herb Trimpe became our penciler. Herb, who had done G.I. Joe comics, all this other stuff that was really appropriate. He knew how to do fighting material. So the way the process worked, I would come up with a concept, and then I would do a rough sketch. And some of my rough sketches were pretty tight, were pretty good. And then Herb, who was a real artist, would then take my rough and make a really beautiful tight version, and then the painter would come in and do the finish at that point. And of course, I would provide whatever, if there's people in the shot, I'd provide photos of the people to work from, so the painter could work from those. But that was essentially it. You come up with the notion, you do a rough pencil, you then get a tight pencil, and then you get the painting done. And so to answer your question, I just realized, probably Homeroom Horror was
Love it.
yeah, that was one of the earliest, because that really got the kids where they lived. It
literally got them where they worked, right?
where they lived and died. But God, I remember I put silly things on the blackboard. Didn't I have like a frog jumping out? I mean, yeah. There's always different little touches there. This
is a card with a purple Allosaurus smashing through a schoolroom with 3 or 4 kids hanging in his mouth.
Blood
grabbing
everywhere.
the teacher. The teacher is stabbing it in the eye with a pointer.
Yeah, that's a really good
And the
one.
best part about that whole card was on the back of these cards, guys, most cards had a newspaper article about what was happening on the front that gave you like the backstory. And all of them were dead serious, but with hilarious jokes in there. Right?
Let me tell you something about that. As much as I loved doing these cards and the paintings and the whole concept and all that, the backs of this series, Mars Attacks was just one uniform design for all the band. The text would fit in that, and all well and good. But because this was a parody, I was doing a parody of our backs as well. And I said, I'm going to go nuts. And I'm going to have all different kinds of, I don't know how they let me get away with this, custom made backs. So the newspaper thing was telling, this city is attacked or whatever. You got that flavor. Then I had the diary or the journal of the scientist to get what was going on. I'm having these nightmares. Is there a devil god out? What's going on there? Whatever. And then I would just go crazy with other stuff. There was the one with the wedding invitation.
Bloody wedding invitation.
A triceratops with a bride skewered on one horn, the groom on the other, the thing stomping on the wedding cake. It was all this crazy stuff. And on the back, it's the wedding invitation, just straight the way it would be, but with blood spots.
Brilliant.
All over it.
It's brilliant. For an example, for Homeroom Horror, it's the Denver Globe is the newspaper backing. And in the middle of it, you read it's like it attacked 8 kids, fought the substitute teacher.
It says students were chewed beyond recognition is what it says.
And then it says, here's my favorite part of it. It says, ironically, the massacre took place during a natural history lesson where the extinction of the dinosaurs was a topic of tonight's homework. Surviving students will be excused from this assignment.
Oh my God. Yes,
incredible.
And I never considered myself necessarily a comedy writer, even though it was comedy writing in the sense that got me my job at Topps and all of that. We had real comedy writers working for us. Stan Hart, who was the head writer of the Carol Burnett Show and who did all those great Mad Magazine parodies over the years. He was one of our group. So whenever we had real humor stuff that had to be done, you'd have a guy like that. And even Artie, who was brilliant at that, and some other guys that were just fantastic humorists. I was more the movie, sci-fi, horror guy, which was important, commercial stuff very much. But this thing just came out of me so naturally. It was like sick humor that just flowed. And it did reflect, I guess, the whole Tops thing, which was seeping into me in every conceivable way at that point. Gotta remember, I was there 9 to 5. I was the only creative person at MPD who was there every single day. And they would throw everything at me because if you're on staff, they're not going to let you twiddle your thumbs for a little bit. They're going to. So I got it. Like I said, it's incredible education. Creating storyboards for their commercials. All kinds of great stuff. So I love Tops for that. No way you can get an education like that across the board. I learned how to edit magazines. I learned how to do books. I learned how to art direct. Just fantastic. I know everybody who worked there thinks of it as this golden era of unreality that we were all able to indulge in and have a great. It was like being in high school again, except better.
Old enough to appreciate it, right?
Yeah. No, it was great, and I was a very lucky guy in life because I always was able to make a living doing creative work, and thank God, because I never could have made it being normal. I mean, so
that's a T-shirt, right?
Yeah. And so the other things I've done in my career have also been fun. Whether it was writing Pumpkinhead or doing the fantastic television book or any, it's always been that way for me. So this was probably like the purest, most absurd example of that. And I've been with the company for half a century. I started in the early 70s, and only now, with the doors closed because of COVID and the company changing, that it's finally. And I'm getting a nice pension from them, and my old card sets are reprinted like crazy in book form now.
Yeah.
I'm hired to write the introductions and the commentaries on my own cards. Which is, I guess, what I'm doing now, right?
Yeah.
Same thing.
That's so amazing. I have to tell you, these card sets, Mars Attacks, Dinosaurs Attacks, Garbage Pail Kids, were so inspirational to me. As a kid, I used to draw my own trading cards and give them out at school and get in trouble for them. They were called Graveyard Ghoulies, and they were drawn on little index cards that I would cut in half, and on the back,
I've never heard this.
On the back, I'd draw a picture, and I got in so much trouble when I drew a man. His rib cage was exposed by being eaten by spiders, and it was Spiders Attack was the name of the card, and I gave that out at school, and they were like, "Where did you see this?" And I'm like, saw it at the comic book. Like
Gary
I just
showed
made it.
me.
Yeah, exactly. It was, and it's from that the dog thing that you mentioned, the exposed rib cage of the mailman getting shot, like Mars Attacks. I was like, I'm going to draw this all day. They were like, let's take away his red crayon.
Our homage to destroying a dog in Dinosaurs Attack, called Crushing a Canine.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
where we had a foot, still like,
It's a Godzilla versus Bambi moment.
Yeah, you're right. That is what it is. And didn't we have I think a little girl? Because it's her dog on the leash. That's But again, you see, there's the difference. I mean, there's the humor. It's never going to have the effect that the original Destroying a Dog had. It was a different era, different sensibility. But I tried to compensate with all that melodrama.
Yeah. I think that's a key aspect of it is the melodrama lends a serious sort of side to it, but then getting to tell the joke that, the kids are excused from the dinosaur homework. Like, that's great. And then, like, you said your face is the doctor. Is he, so you're the final card, Ultimate Sacrifice. You flip the card over, on the back it says "Time to Die," and I think it's a close up of your face going in fire, in flames.
Great makeup job on me. I used Christopher Lee's peeling face from Horror of Dracula as the inspiration. You'll see all of that. Awesome. And the artist who did that for me in our art department, I gave him that photo. Okay, he did a great job.
That's awesome.
I remember my mother was so hot. Oh my God, Gary, look at I'm an actor here for a moment, so I was giving my all.
Too funny.
Now, we're talking about the seriousness of this card mixed in with the jokes, and you went into a little bit here, and I've read other interviews that you've given where you've said that, the Mars Attack movie, in your opinion, didn't really get it right. It didn't have the same tone and the same idea about where the joke should be and how much jokes there should be. And I know that you feel the same about Dinosaurs Attack. how would this be a movie? Like if you were making this movie, I'm sure you've envisioned it, right? Can you try to explain to us what your motion picture version of this movie would be? What would it look like? What would it feel like? What would it have and what would it not have?
Let me give you a movie that is exactly what Dinosaurs Attack should be in terms of tone. Ironically, it was a movie that came out the same year I did Dinosaurs Attack, the original RoboCop. The original RoboCop is filled with over-the-top violence that becomes funny. But underneath it all is melodrama. Right. You have this man trying to figure out who he is as a human, whatever, his wife, his memories and all that. It was exactly what I had done. You have a human story, you have all that, and then you have your violence in exaggerated situations. It gets to the point where it's so absurd. So you have your satire. They even the commercials that they have that were funny were the equivalent of the headlines on the. So it was exactly that. That was the tone. Now, Dinosaurs Attack was optioned twice by Hollywood. 3 times if we include my own option. Originally, Joe Dante had optioned it. And I was sort of friendly with Joe, and I brought down the art as I was doing it to him, and he's going, "Oh my God! So he came on. He was just coming off of Gremlins and all this, and awesome. so he had Warner Brothers option it to make a big movie out of it, and I thought, oh God, this is my opportunity to. Because I had already got Pumpkinhead and, so I wrote some kind of treatment or whatever, but it really wasn't what they wanted. I realized what was going on is they wanted to make it pretty much Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, but with dinosaurs, which meant that all that melodrama was gone. Yeah. The serious side was gone. There was going to be no devil god dinosaur, none of that. Too weird, too crazy. It would just be a parody of the 1950s kind of monster movies. And, that eventually, it was announced in the trades. Unfortunately, what happened, or maybe it's fortunate, I don't know. Another big fan of my trading cards was Michael Crichton. And he pretty much created Jurassic Park after seeing my card saying, gee, I should do something like that. I'll do a better version of this. And so he created Jurassic Park, and all of a sudden, his novel in early form or whatever went out to Hollywood. And my movie had already been announced. And all of a sudden, all of Hollywood, including Joe, was jumping on that too, because it was Michael Crichton and whatever. So Jurassic Park nudged Dinosaurs Attack out of the game. When I created Dinosaurs, my idea was to bring back the dinosaurs attacking cities in the 20th century, this genre, which had been extinct for a while. Yeah, pardon the expression.
Good choice of words.
So Michael Crichton did his version. I have to admit, his concept, that whole thing in the amber and the mosquito was brilliant. I mean, it was brilliant. To this day, I believe, my God, why can't they just do what he did in the novel on Dinosaur? Okay. And my thing was an over-the-top, crazy takeoff on the exaggerated ideas. By the way, the devil god thing, that comes from Quatermass and the Pit.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, at the end when Roni is facing that thing, it's very much like me in the claw of that thing. And again, it was a parody of all the science fiction movies I had seen from the 50s and 60s that meant something to me. All the exaggerated, over-the-top melodrama of those movies. If I could have music in this film, it would have been Dominic Frontieri's scores for The Outer Limits, which were all exaggerated, like all of this wild, insane stuff. Eventually Tim Burton optioned it as well. And he was going to do that first before Mars Attacks. But Jurassic scared him off a little. And he said, all right, not realizing when he put Mars Attacks into production that Independence Day was also happening.
Right.
So he was going to get screwed no matter which way he turned on that one. But that would have been silly, too. It would have been first level, the obvious thing you do with a parody. No offense. That's what Mars Attacks was. It was your basic parody. Right. Which to me, here's the other thing. In addition to optioning Dinosaurs Attack to do as a movie, of course, these other guys are way bigger than I have, so their options kind of canceled mine out. But I also optioned Mars Attacks. After we did Pumpkinhead, it was like, let's do Mars Attacks way before Hollywood even knew what it was, and do it great, do it the way it originally was. So Mark Carducci and I was my writing partner on Mars Attacks, my childhood buddy, who committed suicide years later. I'm godfather to his beautiful young daughter. Anyway, we wrote a script on Mars Attacks, or at least the first third of a script, which was kind of like the challenge in doing Mars Attacks as a movie straight. All the different aspects of it. You have the military aspect, you have the personal aspect, So we created the notion of a family that gets together to celebrate mom and dad's anniversary. And as they're all together from the different walks of life, they all get together to do this. But my goodness, during that evening of celebration, war breaks out. Nobody knows what's going on and whatever. All we know is that all of the people in the family have to split up. And the young man in the family who was in the military is called back to his. A woman whose husband was kind of this nervous guy, they're on the road, and you have the Panic in Year Zero stuff on the road. So through one family, I was able to catch everything that Mars Attacks gave us and keep it cohesive. All right. So it was really good. We took it everywhere. We took it to James Cameron. We took it to, whatever. And we were told the same thing by everybody. We don't think the War of the Worlds is coming back. And I said, but God, how could you not think the War of the Worlds? It's Star Wars on Earth. And people are enjoying watching spaceships and weird-looking creatures. Why wouldn't they enjoy seeing familiar landmarks blown apart by these super fast spaceships and things? It doesn't make sense. Someone's going to do it. If we don't, no, we don't. That's what they told me. Now, Cameron had come close with the Terminator because the skeletal Terminators were like the Mars Attacks in terms of the skull face. It caught that horror thing because the skull face makes you think of death and horror and all that. So he had come, listen, those guys zapping away were pretty much the Mars Attacks that we wanted. So Hollywood didn't think Mars Attacks. They didn't think War of the Worlds was coming back. Thank you. A few years later, we're getting alien invasion scenarios dropping from the ceiling. Whether they're the same year, you got Mars Attacks, the funny version, and Independence Day, and then you've got so many TV shows about aliens dropping in and all that. And I'm going,
yeah. You have the pulse on.
Thank you.
So I have to ask about if you're going to make a Dinosaur Attack movie, because obviously Mars Attacks was a huge influence from 50s movies like This Island Earth, Earth versus the Flying Saucers, all the Ray Harryhausen movies. If you were going to do Dinosaurs Attack, would you like to see it as a Ray Harryhausen style claymation? Is that how you envisioned a movie? Or after seeing Jurassic Park, do you take it that slick CGI route?
That's a good question. At this stage of the game, with the direction of where the Jurassic Park movies are going, this next one, it's now Dinosaurs Attack officially, because the whole world is being invaded by them. So we have finally got to the point where it is now, Jurassic Park is now literally Dinosaurs Attack, with the exception of the metaphysical aspect. If I was going to do a new movie, first of all, to differentiate it from the Jurassic World movies, I would try to do the RoboCop approach. I'd say, make this really ultra-violent and disagreeable that way, catch that, but have the satire to take the edge off and go with the melodrama, full blast. Think of almost like maybe Tarantino could do justice. Go with that and don't be ashamed of it. Revel in it. And the way Tarantino would take music from old movies. Yeah, I would make a deal with United Artists, MGM, and use some of the Outer Limits cues here and there, because that's what I'm doing a takeoff on, the over-the-top melodrama of those kind of things, where you couldn't go far enough in terms of the I don't mean humor, I just mean in terms of the intensity of the melodrama. I love Outer Limits because, particularly the first year, the Joseph Stefano ones, because it was so extreme in terms of, it took you to the outer limits. It took you as far as you could go in terms of scary things coming at you with scary music and all of that. And that's what those movies were. They were chillers. They were science fiction thrillers and chillers. So if I did, or was given the reins to do a Dinosaurs Attack movie, first of all, I maybe I would just call up Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Because he'd be another guy that would get it, that understands, the combination of the satire, but serving the melodrama. Would I use stop motion? If I use stop motion, it would lock in the era and what I was doing a takeoff on, because that's all you had for those kind of movies, other than Godzilla guys in suits. But the problem with stop motion, of course, is that it reminds you that you're looking at something that you're winking at, and it's a hard call on that. I think I would hold off on even deciding what I would do with the effects. I would just make sure the script and the tone was right, and then it would be that big moment where I'd say, "Do we get something?" I think stop motion would be great. We have to, because that would be first of all, the most obvious way to differentiate it from Jurassic.
Right.
But as long as it wasn't like Caveman, as long as the parody didn't make it seem, it would have to be serious stop motion.
It would have, because it would call back to that Harryhausen 50s era, Beast of 2000 Fathoms, Godzilla era stuff. And I think it would be so cool to bring back that style. But you're right. You can't use it to enhance the comedy. You have to use it to enhance the realism, and let the comedy be the camp be the comedy. You don't want it to overshadow itself. I really like that approach.
The humor comes out of the absurd natural things that would happen as a result of these things happening. And it's a parody of our society and of our world too. And if Mars Attacks, you had a saucer zapping a building, all well and good. But as we say in Dinosaurs Attack, if a dinosaur is destroying a McDonald's, it becomes a takeoff and a parody of our commercialism, of how, because we laugh at that. You wouldn't laugh at the generic building. You would laugh at the McDonald's. And yet the McDonald's is part of our real world. So you just use your real world and cut loose, and then everything kind of takes care of itself.
You're still going to play Elias Thorne in the movie, right?
Well, Elias Thorne is rapidly aging. I'll have to have a toupee, because originally my hair was kind of like the George Jetson thing. That was the look. The well-intentioned scientist, right? The sane scientist with a crazy project. Another movie that was a tremendous influence on Dinosaurs Attack was the film Crack in the World, where again you had Dana Andrews playing a guy who's sort of doing this for his own reasons, and of course he winds up possibly destroying his own planet. But again, you had central operations. You had a bunch of guys around screens doing their thing. All those movies, even Fantastic Voyage and whatever. You had all these guys, in front of screens, and I wanted that. I guess there's a lot of the time tunnel too in this too, because I had the screen where you could. Which once it's a parody, you could rip off anything, and you're covered, right?
I just want to see the devil dinosaur appear like that. Like now that we're talking, I want to that devil dinosaur is one of the greatest cards ever.
I wanted to create something complete, because we were saying there's only so much you could do with recognizable dinosaurs, right? Let's create, I said, I want to create the queen alien of this story.
That's awesome.
That you're used to seeing, and then you're going to have something really cool at the end we've never seen. And yeah, I'm kind of annoyed that no one ever made a garage kit out of that thing, because no one ever did.
Well, this is what, like, Dinosaurs Attacks is one of those things. So Aaron and I, we went to college together. We were pretty close in college. We did effects together. We eventually moved out to Los Angeles separate times, but then roomed together. And we're peas in a pod. We know every reference that each other makes. Dinosaurs Attack was one of those few things that we didn't know completely as well as we thought. I was like, really? And then once you started doing the podcast, not as many people know about this as you'd think. And if you Google it, you will see the people that know it and love it. Yeah, but it's not as widely spread as you think. But once you start looking at it, you're like, why would it not be? It's gold, especially for a kid. Now,
thank you so much.
I want to share with you, I told you that I had this. I collect original comic art. For years, I was trying to find paintings from this series, and I couldn't find any, not even like hints. And I would see that some people thought maybe it got destroyed, or different product, or, you know, the artists kept them, or families kept them, or gift them as gifts, and that was it. But I'd never heard a whisper. And at Comic-Con one year, must have been like 2015 or 16, there's a big auction. And Greg Goldstein from IDW is the president of IDW at the time. IDW was kind of co-sponsoring the auction, and he threw in a bunch of pages from the Dinosaur Attacks comic. And there was a bunch of pages, and he seemed like he knew him. So after the auction, I introduced myself, and I was like, I don't know if you're aware, but there was a big big card series from the 80s. And I was like, I've loved that series. I'm trying to find the art from that series. He was like, I own a ton of art from that series. So I was like, really? So me and him kicked off a friendship based on that. And I was eventually able to wrestle my favorite card from him, which was Lunch Break, which has a couple of, and I had to look this name up and how to pronounce it because it's wacky, but it's Parasaurolophus.
Right.
But it's
just the para guy.
It's you know what it is? It's the duck-billed dinosaur. For those of you guys who are not watching on YouTube, I'm holding up, and you should go to YouTube and watch our stuff on YouTube. But it was my favorite card as a kid because it's got these two hornbilled dinosaurs that every kid who knows dinosaurs knows that they eat plants. There's no two ways about it, man. They eat plants, and they've ripped open a school bus and are shoveling children into their mouth, and it's just fucking ludicrous. And my favorite part of it is there was the same dinosaur also got a sticker in this set.
Oh yes, that's right. That's the baby carriage.
The baby carriage. In one hand, he's holding a baby carriage, and in the other hand, he's mushing the baby in his mouth. There is a bloody pacifier and a bloody severed leg falling out of his mouth, and the baby's arm is coming out of his bloody mouth. Yet on the back, and the back of those stickers had the truth about the whatever. And on it said,
I was going to justify all the horrible
just so you know, we know. That sticker says a gentle vegetarian dinosaur, the Paracephalopus. And I was like, I love that you guys knew that, but like, fuck it, this dinosaur is eating this baby. And it's just like, that's the balls to the wall that the kids loved about this series.
Okay, now think about the different levels of parody there. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, right, you hit the nail on the head when I said, but wait a minute, these were nice dinosaurs. Why are they? Okay, all of my dinosaurs became monsters because dinosaurs in the movies were monsters. And you may remember in the original King Kong, we had a brontosaurus, I should say, the patasaurus, although I think brontosaurus is back as an acceptable name, chasing the sailors. And the one guy climbs up the tree, and the brontosaurus, eats them, whatever. So movie dinosaurs, they ignored whatever their dispositions were. They were just monsters. So that's one level of parody. But then there are other levels of parody there too. It's funny. Oh, before I even forget, isn't it interesting how so many movie monsters are based on the designs of dinosaurs? Because this particular Parasaurolophus thing, whatever it is, was really like the alien with the way that head. And Pumpkinhead is very much like the Protoceratops, some other one that kind of looks that way. So it was occurring to me that, my God, yeah, so many of the designers of movie monsters really were inspired by these dinosaurs. But obviously, getting back to this particular, yeah, it's obviously the school bus, getting kids right where they live, and just going crazy.
Well, Aaron and I we've actually done a whole episode called The Kids Are All Right, where we talked about movies that were hardcore enough to just destroy kids, like unapologetically just demolish kids. And this series obviously didn't shy away from that. Was there anything that you remember that you guys had to pump the brakes on that was one step too far, and somebody or something, even if it was yourself, told you, let's dial it back just a hair?
Wow.
I mean, babies falling out of monsters' mouths, that's a pretty high line. Like, maybe there wasn't any, but I would love to know what didn't make it, what was on the cutting room floor, if there was anything.
I would have to do a little more thinking on that. Anything that I came up with on that, I went with. As a matter of fact, that was part of what it was, which was like, don't you dare have any restriction. Just keep going more and more. But sometimes things that are held back for reasons other than violence. It might have been a rights issue or something. Was there anything, I'm trying to think, where we might have gone too far with TNA? I know I did we did a Martian one where there's a wet T-shirt contest with these beautiful girls. So there were a few things that I know we were a little risque that way. Mm-hmm. But I'll have to do some thinking on that. I really don't remember.
Let us know. We'll put an addendum or something on the episode. That would be.
By the way, in terms of these peaceful monster animals being all monsters, another great one was the trilobite terror.
Absolutely. That was one of the ones that actually scared me as a kid, that card.
Yeah, because you were able to get the insect horrible thing in that. And the man's face who's being attacked, that's Stan Hart, the head writer of Carol Burnett and Mad Magazine and all that. By the way, it used to be crazy because Stan would be doing his Mad Magazine page. He'd still be doing them. I mean, he made a fortune off of, Carol Burnett. He had his Emmys, but he still would do the parodies. And he would come into Tops and do stuff for us. He would borrow my screenplays, meaning when I would do a movie card set in the old days, they would give me the screenplays ahead because you have to put these things together 6 months before the movie came out.
Right.
So we did when the movie Gremlins came out. I was doing the Gremlins cards. Stan said, "Hey, Gary, could you let me the script or whatever the Gremlins?" And I'm going, "Oh shit! All right, okay, a little dangerous, okay, Stan." But Stan was such a big, overpowering personality who could tear you to shreds with his wit, and often did. Oh God. Anyway, but the joke was on him on that one because he did his parody for Mad Magazine, and then they changed the end of the movie. And his parody reflected the ending that was in my script, my draft that I had. So obviously they knew he was working off of an earlier draft. But there you go. But he used to do that all the time. He's like, "Oh, can I borrow this or whatever?" So, okay. The studios would, sometimes get a little crazy. There was a period where they would lock me in a room with the script. They wouldn't even let me have the script because the studios began to get a little tighter about that. When I first started in the 70s, they were very, very open to these things and would send me stuff. But years later, I would have to actually go read a script and do all my notes and everything, dialogue and all that, because I wouldn't have direct access anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it makes sense, but wow.
It changed over the years, and now everything is so corporate. It was great. I used to know all the people at the studios in the stills department. If you needed something, you could make a call, and the next day you'd have it. Now you have to go through like 20 people in a system, and what took a day would now take like 2 weeks, maybe. I would hate to do it this way. It's so dehumanized. I knew these people for years, worked with them. Then as time went on, every time I went up to Universal or to Paramount or whatever, I'd be dealing with new people. Mm-hmm. There'd be these new young execs, and there'd be the turnaround and whatever. And, everything changed. Like, I guess entertainment became so popular and these distractions became so big for the public that they had to kind of organize it that way. I guess I understand it.
Well, your work has been so awesome just throughout the years, the trading cards, the scripts, everything you've done. I have a couple questions left. We're getting just past an hour, so we got to start getting into the third act of the film, if you will. But I do want to ask, when you were collecting 16 millimeter films, you brought this up, I got really excited. What was your crown jewel? What did you have that you were like, I got this movie? What was it?
Oh, you mean the old 16 millimeter days?
Yeah.
Technicolor prints were always the most sought after things. Now, just very, very, very quickly, you would get a Eastman color print of a movie. It could look very nice if it was brand new. If it was old, it would often turn red. Color would fade. Technicolor prints were done like a printing press, where they would have the three primary colors or whatever, and they would press them together almost the way photos were printed in magazines, where sometimes they even be a little out of registration. But they gave you a depth and a look and a feel that was so much greater than what any other film process was. That the black level in a Technicolor print was incredible. So those were always the most sought after prints in your collection. Original Technicolor prints. One of the earliest Technicolor prints that I got was This Island Earth, which was a movie that was aglow with Technicolor. Right?
Awesome.
I still have that printed.
And the inspiration for the Mars Attacks Martians.
Literally, because I actually came across the old issue of World Famous Creatures, a Movie Monster magazine, which had a page cut out where Lem Brown had cut out the Metaluna mutant and sent it to the artist to imitate it. So lawsuits, folks. But anyway, I didn't just say that. It was literally based on the Metaluna mutant. It was also based on the racist views of Japanese soldiers in World War II. They were little, they were puny. Topps had done World War II series with Japanese soldiers doing exactly what the Martians did to us. They actually used the same compositions. So that's why the skull face, I hate to say it, with the teeth and the fact that they were kind of little, they were reimagined Japanese soldiers that Topps had used in their Horrors of War series. And it's pretty amazing how that stuff just came back in regurgitated form.
That's wild. Yeah, no, you're right, though, because I have seen the Topps Horrors of War, which, like, how tasteless. Now we're like aghast, but back then that was part of the war machine, you know?
And we would also reuse concepts and designs. For instance, if you look at the painted Batman cards that we did in the mid-'60s, you'll see the composition of maybe Batman being zapped by a freeze ray. That's exactly what was used in the... I mean, when I did Dinosaurs Attack, I deliberately revisited things because I was part of the parody.
Right.
Over the years, they would just simply do that because that was just what they did.
Sure.
It's easier to do that, you know.
Wild. And I guess one of the things I have to give you a lot of credit for is your ability to write a great title. Whether it's
thank God for alliteration.
Yeah.
Alliteration.
Well,
that's the whole thing.
One of my favorites I don't think ever got made was Seven Gargoyles of Satan. I'd watch that movie in a heartbeat.
God, so that was the wow. That you even remember that. Yeah, that was the original Pumpkinhead. Mark Carducci and I, like I say, we were pals in Brooklyn, and we were doing a Super 8 or 16, I even forget now, supernatural story, The Demon of Revenge. He wasn't called Pumpkinhead, but that was when that creature was first conceived. And in our film, God, I forgot how much we even shot of this. We never finished it. We used my Creature from the Black Lagoon mask as the Demon of Revenge. So the original Pumpkinhead was the creature from the Black Lagoon, which makes sense because if you look at Pumpkinhead, inside every rubber-suited head-to-toe monster is the creature from the Black Lagoon anyway. But that was the direct genesis. What we did is we used that mask and then we put kind of a veil over it. We did something to make it look a little more demonic. But yeah, that was, I still have that mask as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Somewhere.
That's so cool. So
Some of the
good.
best designed creatures, let alone movie creatures suits.
Absolutely.
Like,
Head
for
to
that
toe.
to do what it did, get out of here.
Fucking great. I mean, that design still holds up. I mean, it could stand right alongside the Predator and Pumpkin, any of the more modern ones. And yeah.
And it functioned underwater. Like, the Predator got wet, the alien got wet, but like not swimming, not in the water.
And when you did see them swimming, it would be CGI anyway.
Yep.
This was real, and it definitely made a difference.
Well, real quick with creature design, I'm hoping I'm right before I say this, but if you look over your head, Gary, over the top of your chair, there's a little frame picture on the wall behind you. Is that an alien?
Oh, let me.
You see, it's like right behind your head.
Okay, what we're talking about?
Sit back. Sit back.
There's, as a matter of fact, here. Let me get out of the way.
That looks like a xenomorph on the wall.
Yeah. There's other cool things here. I'll show you. Keep looking, and you'll see.
Oh, there's the creature from Black Lagoon.
Outrageous things. Okay, what you're seeing here? That's the sixth finger from the Outer Limits head, but on top of it, those are the original John Chambers storyboards for the sixth finger as he's transforming, right? And this is my office where, I got crap all over my apartment, but the office is where everything is just completely insane.
Yeah, you got it all. The Red Sonjas, the Frankensteins, the Xenomorphs, Sun Demon.
The giant Predator back there. Wow.
Yeah, there's
wow.
Over here.
Oh, there's the mutant.
Yeah, there's a mutant and
Vampirella,
and I don't know what else we got.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, you wrote a Vampirella script, didn't you?
Yeah, I wrote the TV movie, the Roger Corman film.
Corman one.
That script was Jesus Christ, this thing. Elias Thorne does need a hairpiece. I wrote that, and that script, when I first wrote the script, got great reader reports. Tim Burton was interested in it for a while, whatever. Then it wound up with Roger, and it's such a shame that what I wrote really couldn't have been filmed. Some of it still survives. I tried to take what Archie Goodwin did with the Vampirella comic strip. Forey Ackerman created it, but Archie really made it into something. He brought in the Lovecraftian angle.
Yeah.
Now I came up with the idea that, this was Archie's idea. Some of my cool ideas mixed in with Archie's, but the whole notion of vampirism coming from the stars, that Dracula was actually an extraterrestrial. And he came here ages ago, took the name of his home planet, Draculon, which sounded goofy. Of course, when Forey created it was goofy. Archie found a way to make that goofy thing work. That's what Dracula, that's why that's why that planet is named that. What a great idea to use that. And because Vampirella, who was basically Forey was inspired by Barbarella when he created it.
Sure.
So Vampirella came from the stars herself. So how great that Dracula also is an extraterrestrial, that they've been here forever. Vampirism is an alien condition, if you will. And Vampy had different powers here. Now, there are scenes in that where I literally did adaptations of moments from the best of the comics when she's chained up and her bloodlust is getting the better of her. And yet, Adam Van Helsing, the leading man, is thrown in there. Is she going to attack this man that she's come to care for? Even though it was a vampire hunter, it was cool that they were kind of allies. And she has to control her bloodlust. I actually took sound bites, dialogue bites from Archie's original script. Nobody caught any of that.
Yeah.
So you do your best, and you try to make these things work, and whatever happens, right?
Look, you have certainly made a ton of stuff work. I mean, Dinosaurs Attack was formulative for me, for sure. And I know I'm not the only one, just because searching for that art all those years, I saw so many more fans. Whenever we have someone on the show, Aaron and I try to do a bunch of research. So we've read a bunch of interviews where people like us are just loving these series. And that's just the one that spoke most directly to me. You've done so many other amazing things. It has been awesome to sit here and chat killer dinosaurs and Mars attacking with you.
See, it was worth all the aggravation of trying to get this thing set up.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We got to give Gary
some troubles, right?
We got to give Gary a huge thank you, because we had a little bit of trouble getting a Zoom set up, and he was very patient while we worked out some kinks, so he made it work. But hopefully you've had a good time.
One way or another. No, we were going to make sure this happened.
This was really fun. We could talk monsters all day, man.
It's so much pleasure to know that all this stuff. You got to remember, it was really true. I was a kid who needed this as a kid. And sure. I got it from the people who were creating it for me. The fact that I could do this for new kids, young kids, the same way that I got it, I could give it to them. How wonderful. I felt I was doing something good. As ludicrous as these things are, I know how they can make your day, because they made my day when I was a kid.
Yeah. Even if it's just to be subversive and you're like, yeah. That's still fun.
That's it. That's the starting point, right?
Yeah. Well, on the show, we do a secret handshake for the Launchpad podcast. We'd like you to join us with it. This is how we do it. It's kind of funny because we're not in person, but we do it as a high five. We come in sideways, then we turn our hand up, and then we go and blast it off like a rocket ship. Will you pantomime it with us?
Okay.
Here we go.
We'll show you how. We'll do it nice and slow.
Well, okay.
Turn it into a rocket ship.
Oh no, this is like. Oh,
yep, there we go.
Gotcha.
Blast
hey,
off.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's better than the Spock thing. You know, no, I like that.
Wow, you're the first person to ever call that cool. I'd like to put that on the record.
No, you know, made it cool. Yeah, this probably it was the going up, the rocket going up that sells it.
That's the rocket.
I got it. Yeah, no. Oh, very good. I approve.
Well, guys, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at LaunchpadPod, and our website, launchpadpod.com. Check us out on our YouTube. You can see our pretty faces saying funny things. Gary, let people know, where can they follow you? Where if they want to know what Gary's up to, where can they go?
I'm on Facebook. Cool. That's the easiest place that people find me, and just catch me there or send a message there if you want.
Well, this has been a blast, man. Thank you so much again. And guys, we are the Rocketeers, and we are out.
Ignition sequence start. 6,